Ain-sama. Hearing you say that pleases me. Punito Mo-san once said, punching them in the face is a good way to make the other party behave. Or was it warrior Takamikazuchi-san who said that? Since the Supreme Being said so, then it must be correct. Ains could not recall which of these two polar opposites had said that. Just then, a horde of monsters emerged from the depths of the cave. All of them were far taller than a human being. Well, if it isn't a pack of trolls. While calling them giants smacks of false advertising to me, it's not as though it's a complete lie. Trolls were giants with long ears and noses. They had very ugly faces and their muscular bodies were as revolting as that of any heteromorph. They wore what seemed to be tiger skin clothes. Their heads emerged from their shoulders. They were nearly 3 meters tall, stronger than ogres, and possessed of powerful regenerative abilities. It was said that unless they were killed with fire or acid, they could come back from the dead even after being reduced to scraps of meat. There were 6 trolls here, and 10 ogres on top of that. The one which caught Ains' eye was the troll standing at the head of these monsters. It was more muscular than the other trolls, and its ugly face exuded confidence. It was better equipped than the other trolls too. It wore leather armor which looked like it had been sewn together from several animal hides. Its mighty arms bore a greatsword which was larger than the ones which Ains used in his Maman guise. The greatsword seemed to be magical, and the central fuller oozed a slippery liquid towards its edge. Is he on Hamsuk's level? Feels that way. That being the case, this troll ought to be the giant of the East. That being the case, what sort of troll was he? Ains studied the giant of the East carefully. Trolls were highly adaptable monsters. They varied greatly according to their environment. For instance, there were volcano trolls who lived in volcanoes and who were resistant to fire. There were sea trolls who were adept at swimming in the ocean and could breathe underwater. There were mountain trolls who lived in the mountains and were especially strong. There were also toll trolls, rare trolls who lived under bridges. There was a never-ending variety of mutant species and subraces like those. In that case, what was the troll standing before Ains specialized in? Trolls adapted to cavern living were called cave trolls. But they looked different from this one. This was a new species of troll which he had encountered for the first time. In this world this unknown monster kindled Ains' collector spirit. The troll known as the Giant of the East had achieved a very rare form of evolution. He was a troll who had been born amidst countless battles, adapted to them, and specialized in fighting ability. If one had to name it, his species would be war trolls, a particularly outstanding example among the many troll subraces. One could say that its combat prowess was unrivaled among others of the same age as him. Granted, his body was smaller than that of a mountain troll. However, the muscles of his body, his physical abilities, far outstripped those of the latter species. In addition, he did not use a primitive club that could be easily swung with brute force, but instead used his inborn abilities to skillfully wield a sword, a weapon which was inferior even to a club if one did not know how to use one. One could say he was a troll who had awakened his warrior abilities. You're the Giant of the East, I take it? After hearing no denials, Ains pointed slightly to the right of the giant. Then, I believe that chap over there is the Serpent of the West. Am I correct? Someone with ordinary eyesight would surely think he was pointing at empty air. However, Ains could clearly see the heteromorph hiding there, as though it were illuminated by the sun's light. Perhaps you think you've hidden yourself with invisibility, but my eyes can see through it. Stop wasting your effort and answer me. A monster appeared out of what had originally been thin air. It had probably dispelled its invisibility. Indeed, it was a snake. No, to be precise, it had a snake's body. It had an old man's torso from the chest up, but it had a serpentine form below that. It was a heteromorphic monster. Unlike the Giant of the East, Ains had seen monsters like this in Yggdrasil before, and so he could immediately state the name of his race. A Naga, then. While it wouldn't be wrong to call you a serpent, don't you have a better name for yourself? No, there's already the case of the wise king of the forest, so this was only to be expected, no? If thou couldst see through my invisibility, then thou art surely no ordinary. What are you doing here, skeleton? The Naga was only halfway through his words when a thunderous voice filled the cave and drowned him out. The giant of the east took a step forward. Ains turned to face his counterpart. First of all, let me get this straight, I am not a skeleton. I wish to correct that mistake of yours. What are you if not a skeleton? The king of the eastern lands, Gu, permits you to state your name. Gu? Ains had no idea what he was talking about for a moment. He thought that it was some kind of title, like a king or a chief, and it was only after a while that he realized it was the troll's name. I see, so your name is Gu. Pardon my delayed introduction, my name is Ains Ulgaun. At that moment, laughter filled the cavern. Fwafwafwafwa. A coward's name. A soft and weak name, unlike my strong and mighty name. The other trolls laughed distastefully in response to those words. A cow. Ains stopped Aura before she could take a step forward. It's fine. Don't get upset over a trifling matter like this. Remain calm. We're here to talk, we're ambassadors of peace. Oh yes, just for reference, why do you think I'm a coward? Ah, his ilk takes long names to be a sign of timidity, oh mysterious undead. The old man's face of the Naga creased with a mocking smile as he spoke from the side. So he's not an antique, but trash. Then, do you feel my name is that of a coward's as well? This one certainly would not think so, because this one bears a long name as well. Indeed, this one is the Serpent of the West of which thou speakest Ryurarius Spenia Ai Indarin, O invader Ains Ulgaun. This one has often hoped that his mind would be as developed as his body. But if that were the case, he would have dominated this forest long ago, truly a dilemma. You have just saved your own life. A look of suspicion crossed Ryurarius' face as Ains let his innermost thoughts slip out. Unfortunately, just as he wanted to clarify, Gu and the trolls stopped laughing. So what are you weaklings doing here? Come to feed me? Bones are delicious and crunchy. I'll eat you starting from your skull. I am the one who ordered the undead and the golems to build the fortress in the forest. You've heard of it, haven't you? The mood changed in an instant. Gu and his band radiated hostility, while Ryurarius was filled with caution. I know. You pest. If not for this damn snake making noise I'd have killed you long ago. This saves time. A coward and a black little runt. Ah, so we can talk. In truth, I came to negotiate with you. Ains gestured to Gu to kneel before him. Swear yourself to me if you want to live. Are you retarded? How could we serve a coward? I'll eat you right here and now. Then I'll eat that runt behind you. Gu. He rules that fearsome structure. You underestimate him at your peril. And the dark elf behind him. This forest belonged to them before the demon tree chased them away. They might well be mighty foes, but he is not listening. Ains could not help laughing merrily. Ha 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 ha. You're better at barking than a dog, meatball. How about this? I, whom you call a coward, challenge you, who bears a mighty name, to a one-on-one fight. I trust you won't run in fear? If you're afraid, then get on your hands and knees and beg me for mercy, and I could find it in myself to rear you as a slave. Very good. I can handle a mook like you by myself. I'll chop you to bits and eat you all up. Very well. Since you have made your choice, negotiations have broken down. Aura, stand back. I want to play with him by myself. Just as he finished saying that, the upraised sword hacked down on Ains. This was the blow Gu had struck with the great sword he held, which was over 3 meters long. Ains did not move, simply took the hit square on his body. Huh? What's wrong? What's so surprising? Ains was untouched. Gu's ugly face twisted in surprise, and this time he chose a sweeping slash. However, the result was the same as before, Ains took the blow head on. Moo? Gu backed up several steps. He looked at his sword, and then at Ains. He proudly turned his back on Ains, then walked up to one of his minions. In the next moment, the great sword whirled and cut into one of this troll minions. The sword cleaved into the troll's neck and shoulder, effortlessly parting its flesh, and a geyser of fresh blood spewed forth. The troll screamed stupidly. At the top of its voice, Jiyu watched in satisfaction as his minion spun and fell to the ground, and he nodded. That was probably to verify that his weapon was working. I see, is that trollish regeneration at work? Quite an impressive sight, when you witness it with your own eyes. The wound surface healed over swiftly. It was not so much turning back time as a fast forward of the recovery process. Jiyu must have known that the troll would regenerate before testing his blade on him, but the evil look on his face as he looked down on his fallen minion suggested that he would have cut the creature up anyway, even if it could not regenerate. It is the privilege of the strong to kill or spare the weak. However, it deeply displeases me. Ains stepped forward. He was no longer in the mood to play around. Jiyu gripped his greatsword tightly, waiting for Ains to approach him, step by step. Jiyu. That Ains Ulgaun is no mundane individual. Let us band together to fight. Shut up. You sit there and watch, coward. You go. An explosive series of slashes rained down on Ains. The combination attack was made using physical strength that far surpassed the capability of the human body, and it was among the most destructive assaults Ains had ever faced from the inhabitants of this world. However, his strikes could not blow away a castle wall, and neither could it scar the land. How could it possibly harm Ains? The greatsword's edge sliced through the wind, and Ains took it full on his body. Good grief. Could you not crumple my clothes? Ains seemed to find it all uninteresting, and he turned away after tugging on his robes and straightening them out. Then, a thought apparently came to mind. Are you satisfied yet? Gugu. Jiyu decided that slashing attacks were ineffective, and so he took one hand off his greatsword and threw a punch. This blow struck like a huge maul. If it hit a human being, they would surely have been pulped by its power and sent flying. Yet, Ains took this blow, which was assuredly fatal for a human being, straight in the face. After that, he calmly dusted off the place where Jiyu had struck him, like he had been touched by dirty hands. Jiyu ceased his attack. His ugly face contorted into an even uglier shape, and he glared at the unmoved Ains. So, is that end of the attack? You're so proud, he of the brave name? It's only your defense, Goarg. Ains stepped forward to close the distance between them and swung his staff, which destroyed half of one of Jiyu's legs. Unable to stand, Jiyu collapsed heavily to the ground. Even with that acorn-sized brain of yours, you should be starting to realize that cowards aren't necessarily weak, no? The trolls and ogres watching the fight shouted in shock as they saw their leader's disgraceful state. Ha! Ains was beginning to tire of this and sighed. The fact that they did not understand the situation, even at this point, proved that these monsters were worthless. Of course, it would be a different matter if they were smart enough to try and flee. Aura, seize him. He is the only one who cannot be allowed to flee. Aura immediately understood Ains' terse order and sprang into action. In the blink of an eye, she had caught up to the Naga, who was trying to sneak away invisibly. Got him, Ains-sama. What should I do with him? Ains paid no heed to Jiyu and looked to Aura, who had the Naga by the neck. The way he treated Jiyu made one thing clear to everyone present. In other words, he could not be bothered to deal with the Jiyu fellow before him. Jiyu growled from between his teeth at this utter humiliation, but Ains did not care. Curse you, brat. The Naga's serpentine body started constricting, and it wrapped around Aura. I'll crush you to AIIIIEE. A cold, calm voice came from the midst of the balled-up Naga. You know, I can't watch Ains-sama like this. If you continue struggling, I'll use more force and crush your throat. Don't worry, you won't die from it. Her small fists were enough to make the Naga realize the difference in their respective strengths, and the Naga slowly loosened its coils with a strangled wail. Aura, while time is money, wastefulness is also foolishness. Please move a little further away so he doesn't end up getting killed by accident. Understood. Aura leisurely dragged away the Naga, who weighed several times more than herself as she left. Ains shifted his gaze back to Jiyu, who had barely managed to stand up again after his regeneration caused his shattered leg to bulge up mightily as it repaired his ruined flesh. Ains might not be as tall as his opponent, yet he towered over Jiyu. "Oh, so you're healed. Then let us continue." Ains rapped at his shoulders with his staff, then calmly took a fighting stance. His attitude said that he had no intention of defending himself. What did you do? What are you doing? Magic? Jiyu slowly backed away as he held his sword, while Ains stepped forward like he was giving chase. Jiyu's stride was shorter than Ains'. The distance between them was greater than when the battle had begun. Ains snorted. Well, isn't this strange? I, the one with the cowardly name, am advancing, while the bravely named Jiyu-sama is backing off. I wonder why that is the case. Someone replied from behind in a deadpan voice, "That's because Ains-sama's name is the brave one, and that weird Jiyu name belongs to a coward. Isn't that right, Snake?" "Why yay. Ains-ul-gaun-shama is the greatest." After hearing the sweet little girl's voice and another voice, which was on the verge of tears, Ains nodded several times. "I see, I understand now. Short names are the mark of a coward. The name of Ains-ul-gaun belongs to a brave and wonderful person, am I correct?" "Why you? Shut up, coward." Jiyu's anger overcame his fear, and he swung his blade at Ains as though to hack him in two. Ains did not parry or dodge, simply swung back with his staff. Ains' blow did not permit Jiyu to block with his sword or evade. The staff shattered part of Jiyu's body. Abahaha. Jiyu's piteous wailing sparked fear in the hearts of his underlings as they watched the battle. Well, that's a troll for you. With their regeneration, they can even come back to life after being reduced to mincemeat. Still, pain does seem to hurt. That was the weakest attack you made so far. All you were thinking of was protecting yourself. You feared being hit by me. It was a coward's swordsmanship. Before Ains was Jiyu, whose head was half its normal thickness. A normal creature would have died long ago, but his head was slowly returning to its normal shape. Jiyu's restored face was twisted into an especially disgusting shape. It was etched with terror. He was even more afraid than before. It was the reaction of one who had been broken by fear. What are you? Why couldn't I do anything to you? Ains tilted his head, and then slowly spread his arms. I am death. I am he who brings death to you. You lot. Kill him. Good grief. I expected nothing less of a coward, to renege on the terms of our duel. Still, it does suit your name. So I will forgive you. Ains seemed very happy as he said this. Jiyu's minions were scared stiff by this mysterious monster, and so they remained still. That was because despite their stupidity, they could feel the sheer power of Ains, and they had certainly witnessed enough of it. They were probably wrestling with themselves, unable to decide who was more fearsome. Nobody dared to move, they simply looked back and forth between Ains and Jiyu. Hurry! But they still did not move. They could not move. The same applied to Ains. There was a delicate balance here, one which rooted everyone in place. If Ains made a move, this balance would collapse, and they would all flee for their lives. It would be troublesome if they escaped. Just the thought of hunting down and killing each and every one of them felt tiresome. In that case, let's do it this way. Playtime is over. Ains activated one of his abilities, which he had not had the chance to use, and was too powerful for this world. Despair Aura V, instant death. The surging aura billowed out from Ains. The trolls, ogres and Jiyu went limp and collapsed like puppets whose strings had been cut, slumping to the ground. The fallen monsters did not move. It was clear that although their bodies were still warm, the flames of their life had been utterly extinguished. An old man's voice rang through the silent cave. What didst thou do? The Naga was curled up into a ball, doing his best to stay away from Ains.
I turned around and replied, I simply used a skill. Trolls can regenerate, but that does not immunize them to instant death attacks. Honestly, you lot are worthless. You are simply thinking that rather than slaughtering you all outright, I should see what uses you might have, but since they refused to bend the knee, I decided to kill them all. This one gladly consents to be your subordinate. It is only natural for the weak to obey the strong. From now on, this one shall commit his entire strength to thee. Ainz calmly looked down upon the prostrate Naga, and then shrugged weakly. Whatever, it's fine. Besides, I came here to talk anyway. How fearsome. Thou thinkest nothing of this one. Thou regardest this one, who has long ruled the western forest, as little more than an animal saped pebble by the roadside. No, I am somewhat more interested in you than that. Didn't you mention something about the dark elves? Tell me everything. But of course I shall. This one shall gladly tell thee everything this one knows. Although, I'm thrilled to bid the Naga continued, and they said, wilt thou spare this honest life after this one tells his tale? That I promise you. If you are loyal to me, if you serve me sincerely, I will reward you appropriately, but first, a question. Where are your minions? Or are you like Kamsuke, the beast who ruled the southern forest by herself? No, this one has underlings. However, this one came for the sake of negotiations, so this one did not bring them along. That was because these honest minions cannot make themselves invisible, so on the negotiations broke down, they would have no way to flee. Easy. Now, for my next question, do you have any troll minions? Only one. Excellent. In that case, can I have him take the place of the giant of the east? No, that's too, that might be a little troublesome. Very well.
In a few days, I will bring my subordinates to know, you will go to the structure that she built. Or, release him. Is that really all right? It's fine. He's already sworn his loyalty to me. If he betrays me, I'll simply think of some other way to use him. Aura's slender hands released the Naga's neck, leaving hand-shaped bruises on his flesh. The Naga was still nervous, but he was much more relieved now. Ains paid him no heed, but walked up to Jiyu's corpse. I wonder what sort of data a troll zombie contains. Ains could create undead beings from corpses with a skill. While they were little more than zombies or skeletons, he could make stronger zombies if the corpse of the base creature was powerful enough. A more famous example of those would be dragon zombies. Ains picked up the greatsword which had fallen to the ground. It was far longer than Ains was tall, but thanks to the basic principle of magic arms and armor, it shrank down to a size which best fit Ains. If Ains tried to swing a sword which he could not equip, he would be forcibly disarmed, but just picking it up did not pose any problems to him. Should I strengthen that village's fighting power? In that case, perhaps this magic weapon might be the best choice. Besides, there's no value in bringing it back to Nazarick. Ains Ulgaun-sama. Isn't he done yet? Ains tiredly turned to look at the Naga. This one will never betray thee. Only the fools who have never seen thy icy gaze that regards all before him as mere ants would dare betray thee. I did not think my eyes were as expressive as that, or is this a skill of yours too? Even Demiurge, that master of scrutiny, could not tell what I was truly thinking. It hardly qualifies as a skill, but this one can still sense whether someone is interested in this one. Ains thought, perhaps that the Naga racial ability. Really now, very well, I understand. Stop wasting time and gather your minions. This is my first order. Yes. Part 4 Nazarick time 2107 Demiurge's elegant form appeared within Ains' office. First, he bowed deeply to the seated Ains, and then nodded in deference to Mare and Cositus, who were waiting within. He spared the maid assigned to this room a glance of acknowledgement. Ains answered with a look, and then spoke to Entoma via message. All right, Entoma, tell Lupus Regina she has permission to set off. Those three must be protected no matter the cost. Understood. I will relay your orders to Lupus Regina. Demiurge walked to the center of the room, free of worries. His stylish stride made Ains envious. How shall I describe it? Every move he makes overflows with confidence. Is it because his back is very straight? Demiurge halted crisply, bringing Ains back to his senses. It is good that you've come, Demiurge. Yes. I thank you for summoning me before you, Ains-sama. Have you finished speaking with Entoma? Everything is fine. She reported back to me, and discussed the matter with me. She has passed this test. Wonderful. In addition, I thank you for making time for me, Ains-sama. Pay it no heed, Demiurge. It is only fitting that I should match myself to the man who has done the most for Nazarick. In addition, you are not late, so do not worry, and now then, tell me what you think. Ains handed the piece of paper he was holding to Demiurge. Demiurge received it, and Ains saw him quickly scan it from top to bottom before asking. As you can see, this is a menu, but what do you think of it? The meal is for a human male and female, and possibly a child. I think that any human being must consume whatever you deign to provide for them without complaint, Ains-sama. However, I feel that is not the answer you seek, therefore if there is a child, they might not enjoy foie gras. In addition, lighter dishes might be more ideal. I see. That certainly bears consideration. I thank you. You honor me with your praise. Ains-sama, do you intend to invite people to the great underground tomb of Nazarick into the sanctuary of the Supreme Beings as your guests? Indeed. I intend to be hospitable. Or rather, it was not so much hospitality as entertaining them. This was a form of coercion backed by wealth, intended to keep them on good terms with him. Is that wise? Does it matter? Is there a problem? No, none at all. After all, whatever you speak is correct, Ains-sama. In the past, when this had all been in the game world, the great underground tomb of Nazarick had played host to very few people other than the guild members. At the very most, they had invited the little sister of the guild member Yumeko, whose player name was Akemi-chan, a few times. However, the guild did not forbid inviting anyone. It was simply that nobody had thought to do so. Which is why my friends ought to have no issue with me inviting Nfiria, and the others. Invaders are different from guests. Ains then turned to Demiurge, who was pondering something, and the other two guardians who had been waiting in the room before he asked, Guardians, are you ready to enter the baths? Forgive me, Mayor and I were planning to borrow bathing equipment along the way. I see. Then, Cositus, you brought yours along. Then we shall meet in the baths. Increment, if anyone comes, have them wait for me here. Understood. After hearing the maid's reply, Ains stood up and left his room. After ordering the vassals who usually trailed him around to remain where they were, he led the way to the baths, which were also on the 9th floor. Ains very much wanted to chat with Cositus as they walked side by side, but Cositus was a very serious person, and would never do such a thing. This made Ains feel a little lonely. Cositus probably had not read his heart, but he approached Ains and asked, Ains-sama. There seemed to be fewer 8 edge assassins. I in the room just now. Did you send them somewhere? Ains felt a little disappointed when he discovered that it was work-related, but he also comforted himself by thinking that this was what Cositus considered casual conversation, and so he replied to Cositus. He very nearly let the excitement creep into his voice, but in the end he decided that it would be better to keep it a secret. They are at the Erantal Inn. Narbril is waiting there in case we have an unexpected visitor. They ought to be observing the situation from afar. Island, it not dangerous to leave Narbril alone by herself? Quite. If anyone plans to attack, they ought to do so now. I see. So she island live bait then? Indeed. If the person who brainwashed Shaltir is observing our every movement, this bait will surely have them drooling. After Mammon defeated the mighty vampire Shaltir granted, she was known by a different name. Nobody attempted to approach him. That being the case, if Mammon is not around, leaving the magic caster all by herself, they will take the bait? I don't know. But if they do, I will be a masturbator.